Hey guys, my name is Justice with Tomorrow's Filmmakers and 90dayfilmmaker.com, and in today's episode, I'm going to show you how I made the ultimate editing desk for under $200. Over the last 10 years, I have been editing on so many different desks, from office desks, executive, L-shaped, standing desks, small, short, tall, any sort of desk you can think of, and I keep going through these desks trying to find the perfect one for editing and the perfect one for my workstation. But I notice a major problem in all of them. They are not long enough, they don't have enough room, and they don't have a monitor shelf. I run out of room so fast and I immediately feel cramped on this little itty bitty desk. Now about a year ago I went to a buddy of mine and he had this massive editing desk with this second shelf for his monitors, and it was incredible. I sat down and just loved it. Now he told me the brand of that desk, which was Mid-Atlantic, and I looked it up and wow, there is no way I'm gonna be paying that for a desk. I looked around for similar desks and I really couldn't find one for any less than about $3 grand. So instead, I used the same layout and the same dimensions as my friend's desk and made my own for less than $200. What I love about it is that it is completely customizable to whatever you need. Do you need a piano shelf for creating music or a special shelf for, certain monitors? You go right ahead and put it on your desk. But I want to show you exactly how I made a $4,000 editing desk for only $200 so that you guys can do the same thing. I'll also have a PDF in the description which you can download that has all the instructions and what you need so you don't have to keep referring back to this video whenever you're trying to build it. Now I knew I wanted my desk to be really large. I was tired of having a small place to work and tired of having the monitor right in front of my face. And the desk we're going to be building today is 6.5 feet wide and 3.5 feet deep, and the monitor shelf on top is the same width of 6.5 feet and 1 foot deep. Again, you can make yours to whatever size you want, but this is the size that I wanted and it's perfect for my workstation. So the materials that you will need are 9 2x6x8s, and I got 8-foot boards because I wanted my desk to be longer than 6 feet. If you only want your desk to be 6 feet long, then you can just get 2x6x6s. Wood finish stain, and you can choose any color depending on how dark or light you want your desk. I decided to go with a little bit darker color, so I chose honey. Crystal clear satin-based polyurethane, Tight Bond premium wood glue, sandpaper, and I would get multiple grades like 60, 80, or 120. A pocket hole jig, which is about $20 at Lowe's and is a necessity for this build. KREG screws of 2.5 inches long, and depending on the legs and the shelf support, you might need a right angle attachment for your drill, which again is only like 15 bucks at Lowe's. And you'll also need a foam brush, angler, pencils, measuring tape, an old washcloth, and just normal everyday things like that. And of course, your legs and your monitor shelf support. Now, of course, this depends on what kind of legs you want and the look that you're going for. We used black steel pipes and end caps for our legs, but I'll show you guys a little bit about that in just a little bit. But those are gonna be the basic things you need to create your ultimate editing desk. And to give you guys just kind of a layout of how this is gonna go, we're gonna be cutting out and laying our boards in the shape of the desk that we want, gluing them and screwing them together with our pocket hole jig, sanding it, staining it, putting the monitor shelf on it, and that is the general idea of how this desk is going to come together. So let's jump right into the build by determining how wide you want your desk to be. Now mine is 6.5 feet across and 3.5 feet deep, and that requires 7 of our 2x6 boards for the main deck. First, we cut our 8-foot boards into the right dimensions, and I would suggest cutting an inch off of the other side as well. And that's because many times wood from places like Lowe's and Home Depot, they don't have 100% perfectly clean cut edges sometimes, and you don't want kind of a messed up edge on the end of your desk. So instead of cutting 2 feet off of one end, you cut 1 foot and 11 inches off of one end and then 1 inch off the other end, just to guarantee that you have those perfectly symmetrical edges for your desk. Once you cut your pieces, go ahead and lay them out on the ground or a table to determine which boards you want where. Now, boards like this are always weird because some of them will fit together flush while others won't. So if you press them together and there's a small gap in between them, try to move them around until you have little to no gaps between the boards. And if there's also a blemish on a piece of wood that you'd rather not hide or you'd like to show, you can determine all that here, flip the boards over, move them around to get the best looking tabletop and the best looking workstation. And now it's time to screw the boards together. And this is where I completely messed up the first time and had to redo this whole thing. You want to make sure that you put them on a completely flat, level surface. Don't use a tabletop or anything like that. If one part of the desk is slightly off, it will be exaggerated as you add more boards to it and you will have a warped table by the end. I used a table the first time and everything was warped when I was finished. So take your boards and flip them upside down and place them on a flat surface like the floor of your garage or something like that. If you don't do this step and you don't find a flat surface, your desk will be ruined. Next, we're going to take our pocket hole jig and put screws in each of the wood going in both directions. Now you can add as many screws to these boards as you want, but I added 7 screws to each piece of wood, with 3 screws going in one direction and 4 screws will be going in the other direction. You will do this on every board so we can screw them all together. First, we make our marks on all the boards and then we use our pocket hole jig to make the holes. And if you've never used a pocket hole jig before, first you take your measuring tool that they give you with the pocket hole jig, you measure the wood, and as you can see this is 1.5 inches. You then set the drill that comes with the pocket hole jig to that length, which is 1.5 inches, and then you set the base of the pocket hole jig to that same length. You are then able to put the brace on the wood and drill a hole into the wood with the perfect measurements for the drill to stop right at the end of the wood without going through to the other end. This will allow you to drill a screw into the other piece of the wood without breaking through the other side. An incredible little tool that's around 20 bucks at Lowe's and is a necessity for this build. So using a flat surface, we place our jig on the marks that we made and we drill all the holes into the wood, with 4 holes going one direction and 3 holes going in the other direction. And you really need to make sure that the pocket jig doesn't move, so you can either use a clamp or you can do like I did and literally just stand on it. You just don't want it to move around whenever you're trying to make those holes. And once you have done that, you should have a bunch of holes throughout all the wood in your desk. Now we want to have a little bit extra sturdiness to the desk and just make sure it doesn't go anywhere. So before we screw them together, we add the Titebond glue to the edge of the wood and then place them together and then screw them together. And if the wood oozes out a little bit, that's all right because we're going to be sanding this thing like crazy. So we add the glue, we start screwing the boards together with our 2.5 inch KREG screws, 4 going in one direction and then 3 going in the other direction. Then we just keep adding boards to it. We add the glue, we place the boards, we add more screws, we add boards, we do the glue, we do more screws, and we just keep doing that until you have all of your boards screwed together properly. You also want to do this exact same thing with the 2 boards that you have for the top monitor shelf, and there you go. You have your desk put together and it's starting to look great. Now before we add the monitor shelf to it, we are first going to sand this thing like crazy. And if you think you've sanded enough, sand some more. All right, I'm not even joking. Your arms are going to be sitting on this desk all the time, and if there is any roughness whatsoever, it's going to irritate your skin and you're going to hate your desk. So you want it to be literally as smooth as ice. Even though we're going to be putting a clear coat on the desk at the end, that won't help with rough surfaces. So you need to make sure that it is completely smooth and sanded so much. So do the top of the desk and also all of the edges and corners so it's really nice and smooth. Now it's entirely up to you if you wanted to sand the corners of the desk and make them actually rounded so there's no points. I personally wanted there to be a point at the end so it looked more rustic and looked more like wood. But of course, if you want to sand it to make it round, you can do that. But at least still sand all of the edges just so that there's no roughness. Once we have sanded our desk, it's time to add your stain. Now make sure that all of the sawdust is off of the desk. I would use a leaf blower or something to really get all of it off, and even get a damp rag and just run it over a few times. You don't want to get the desk wet, but you want to remove all sawdust from the desk or else the stain won't stick to it. Now remember, stain is not like paint. You don't want to paint it on there and then let it dry. You have to wipe it off with a rag or it will become really sticky and ruin your desk. Now depending on the color that you want for the desk, if you want a darker color, you would leave the stain on there longer before wiping it off. And if you wanted a lighter color, you would leave the stain on there not nearly as long, before you wipe it off. And if you'd like, you could practice with some extra wood that you had lying around after you cut the desk to measurement, just to get the kind of color that you would like. But for me, I really like the color of just about a minute after leaving the stain on there before I wiped it off. Now, I didn't do the underside of the desk because nobody will ever see it, but if you want to do that, you could do the underside as well. And also make sure that you do the edges and the monitor shelf as well. And once you are happy with the color, allow it to dry, and then we can add our clear coat. Now, a clear coat is actually more like paint, and you just want to add a clear coat of paint to your entire desk with a brush. Now, be sure to spread it all out evenly, because if clear coat starts to kind of glob up in certain areas, it will start to actually look white and not look clear. So spread it out evenly over the entire desk and the entire monitor shelf. And congratulations, you guys, you have finished the most difficult part of the desk, and it's finally time to put it together. First is the legs. You have many different options for desk legs. If you have another desk that you just want to put this thing on top of, you can easily do that. You can buy table legs at Home Depot for around $50 for a set of 4 of them, and these table legs will hold the weight of this desk. We actually bought some, and we tried it, and they work perfectly fine. I have an electric standing desk, and I actually removed the legs from that and added it to this build, so now I have a standing desk. But before I ever did that, I actually went to Lowe's and bought 4 black 30-inch steel pipes. And I first bought 36-inch pipes, but I realized that they were way too long, so I went back later and bought the 30-inch pipes. But I bought 4 pipes and 2 end caps for each of the pipes. I love the look of these because not only does it support the desk really well, but it looks really industrial and just fits so well with the look of this desk. First, I screwed in the end caps for the pipes on the bottom of the desk with 1 1/4 inch wood screws. Then all I had to do was screw in the steel pipes and they were done. Now, instead of going with the typical just square leg setup, we decided to do it a little bit different to give myself a little bit more room and also give a lot of support to the desk. I decided to have the 2 back legs about 1.5 feet inward and between the 2 back boards because this was going to be holding up the most weight, which would be all of my monitors. I didn't want it to be in the center of only 1 board because that would put a lot of pressure on that board to hold up the monitor shelf, so I put them in between the 2 back boards. The front 2 legs, I ended up only having about 8 inches inward and on the second board. Now this gives me a lot more leg room and also allows the desk to have the support that it needed. I screwed the end caps into the desk, then all I had to do was screw those legs into the end caps. With the monitor shelf, we pretty much did the exact same thing. I purchased 4 1.5 inch black steel pipes with 2 end caps for those pipes as well. These were the exact same pipes I used for the legs, just shorter ones to use for the monitor shelf. And of course, depending on how tall you want the monitor shelf to be, you can buy pipes at any size that you want. And to be honest, I actually tried 3 different sizes before I found the perfect monitor height. Now with the shelf, screwing in the bases was a very similar setup. I placed the 2 back bases about 2 feet inward and the front 2 bases were only about 6 inches inward. I wanted to have support on the end of the shelf, but I also wanted to have lots of space underneath to be able to store things. If I had both of the bases close to the center, it wouldn't give any support to the edge of the monitor shelf and it would also not give me any space underneath. I screwed the end caps into the shelf and then I just screwed the black steel pipes into those bases and we were ready to put it on the desk. Now the only problem was I also needed to screw this onto the desk, but I didn't have any room because of the giant monitor shelf. So I found this incredible little tool at Lowe's for about $15, and it's a DeWalt right angle for your drill. You place it on your drill and it allows you to drill at a 90-degree angle. Using that, I screwed in the monitor shelf to the top of the desk, and boom, you now have a $4,000 editing desk for less than $200. And you can customize this to anything that you want. I actually glued a card reader to the underside of the desk to get it out of the way, a USB docking station to the underside of the shelf. I added cord organizers to the back of the desk along with LED strips to give it some nice ambience. And I also screwed in 2 surge protectors to the underside of the desk. Whatever you want to do, you have the ability to do it, and whatever you want to customize it to make it the most efficient editing desk for you. I've spent countless hours at this desk editing and creating content, and I absolutely love it. And again, we have the PDF down below to show you the exact items that we purchased and how much everything was. And if you want, you can create the exact same desk that we did. So I hope this video has really helped you guys out and encouraged you to create your own editing workstation. Unfortunately, editing desks are crazy expensive, when in reality, they are a large piece of wood with a smaller piece of wood for your monitors. And we created one ourselves, which in my opinion actually looks better than the $5,000 editing desk that you can buy. And now that you have a place to edit, it's time to learn how to edit. And inside Tomorrow's Filmmakers, we have over 1,000 training videos and over 100 hours of content on every filmmaking subject you can imagine, and we also teach how to edit in all 4 major editors, so whatever editor you have, you can learn. You can check all of that out in the notes below, and also be sure to check out our free 1-hour filmmaking webinar where I share with you the 10 filmmaking secrets that nobody is telling you. You can find all those links in the notes below, but I hope that you guys really enjoyed this video and build your own editing workstations. If you do build your desks, post a picture of it and tag us on Instagram at Tomorrow's Filmmakers. And of course, if you have any questions, please email us at justice@tomorrowsfilmmakers.com. Thanks again for watching another episode of Tomorrow's Filmmakers, where we give you all the skills that you need to succeed.